Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today on the latest series in the webinar. And we're really, really privileged today to be joined by Jez from the Southeast Regional Organised Crime Unit. So he's come from the police, represents actually a number of banners, which I'll let him explain a little bit more about in a moment. But he's here to talk to us primarily today about the innovations in AI and cybercrime. The reason it's really, really powerful to have Jez on the call and why we're so grateful for him to coming on and talking to our base is purely because he's actually supporting in real time the victims of this crime, and he can talk about the organisations and the effects on those organisations, and the sorts of different scenarios he's seen. So thank you for coming on, Jez. I'm going to hand over to you, and I'm going to do my best impression of a quiet person while you're speaking. But if you need me for anything, I'll hopefully have some questions at the end. Just for everybody on the call, if you have any questions, there's a Q&A section. You can go in there, raise those questions, and I'll put those to Jez at the end of the call. And if not, then you can always ask them as a follow-up, and we'll make sure they're addressed as well. So thank you very much, and over to you, Jez.
Matt, thanks very much. Folks, thank you for giving up your time. Appreciate, it's a chunk of your Thursday morning. I'm really grateful for this audience because it's an audience I'd never have found. And part of my job, the outreach part of my responsibility, is to find audiences because we are charged with trying to increase the cyber resilience of sort of UK PLC. So to put my organisation into some kind of context, imagine law enforcement in the UK as a pyramid. At the base of that pyramid are the 43 traditional police forces in England and Wales. I've got Police Scotland, Police Service Northern Ireland. The next tier up is the 10 regional organised crime units. And just to finish off the pyramid at the top, Britain's answer to the FBI, apparently, the National Crime Agency. We'll leave that there. So you've got the 10 regional organised crime units. We were set up, as the name suggests, to deal with serious and organised crime. Cyber, on the whole, is just another flavour of serious and organised crime. Organised crime groups wanting to make money out of you and me, whether that's us as citizens or whether that's us as part of businesses, entities, organisations, charities. They just want us. They want to come at us. And the threat landscape is what it is. It's vast, it's ever-changing, and AI is part of that. Now, a lot of business, because I spend a lot of time with business, a lot of business squint quite a lot of law enforcement being involved. Why are you here? Why do you want to stick your nose under the bonnet of my business? Well, as I said, we're charged with trying to increase that resilience around cybercrime. Like all organised crime, the law enforcement response is a 4P approach. So you've got pursue, going after the people committing this crime. You've got prevent, or in the case of cyber, it's been renamed as choices. But ideally, it is to illuminate, identify, and divert those young people that are getting themselves into some poor behaviours. And then you've got the protect and prepare piece, which is what I'm representing today. Let's try and educate. Let's try and illuminate some good behaviours. Let's try and start those conversations within your organisations to perhaps freshen things up, just a change of direction. Because as Matt says, I'm from the old bill, okay? And I was 30 years as a cop. I retired. I came back. I'm not a techie. I don't come from a technical background. But to gain some credibility so that I can talk to you, I did go away and manage to come up with ISACA's CISM, Certificate in Information Security Management. And I'm really proud of that. One, because I had to go back to school in my 50s, but two, I've never managed information security for any organisation that I've ever worked for, especially the police. So I was dealing with concepts that aren't part of my day-to-day work, but still managed to get there. So hopefully that gives me the right to talk to you around sort of governance and policy and structure and architecture. And that's not necessarily where we're going today. I'm down for 3 of these, and hopefully you'll like what you hear, and you'll come back for the others. I think June and November are my slots, and we'll take you on a bit of a journey. The next one's going to be, now it's all gone wrong, what should you be doing? And the final one is, let's try and avoid that going wrong in the first place. What does good look like? How do we start that secure by design type idea? Now, really grateful to Matt, really grateful to Indigo. I have to be careful. I'm law enforcement. I'm impartial. Okay, so although I'm more than happy to stand next to Indigo, I can't hold hands. I have to say there are other MSPs out there, but do your due diligence, as I've done. otherwise I wouldn't be stood here at all. There is a lot of snake oil out there, and I've been in part of an awful lot of incident response where MSPs and the like are woeful and not doing what they should do. Okay, so just make sure you know exactly what you're getting, what you're buying in for, and who you're with. Let's move on. AI, buzz of the moment. We haven't got an awful lot of time, and I've wasted 6 minutes so far. AI in cybercrime. What do we need to worry about? Well, of course, it's being adopted by criminals. But this is the thing. Nothing has really changed from the point of view of our attack vectors that we're seeing in the crime and the victim data haven't changed. Phishing is still phishing. Credential attacks are still credential attacks. Social engineering is still social engineering. This is the bit that has changed: the speed, the scale, and the believability. That's where we do have to really up our game. That is what AI has done for the criminal. They can make that attack slightly slicker, look a bit better, fool your staff, fool you. But the basic mitigations, again, haven't changed because the attack vectors haven't changed. AI hasn't opened up a whole new plethora of, oh no, they're coming in from over here. They're not coming in from over here. It's not new. They're still coming in from over there. They're just coming in shinier, faster. Now, hopefully this next video will work. It's a YouTube video. Fingers crossed. If it doesn't, you can link from it to YouTube. If there's any major issues, we'll make sure it gets to you as a resource. Some of you might have already seen this. And there's a little bit more, but we're short on time. Okay, James Nesbitt. Of course, there's loads of his voice out there. But what about you? Your position within your organisation? What am I able to scrape from the internet? You're done. Voice notes, it might be where you've been quoted. It might be an interview you've given, either internal or external. That's all a criminal needs, to start doing that. Because as Jimmy said, half those things he didn't say, he hasn't said, but it's been put together by AI because they've been able to scrape his voice, so they can clone his voice and then they can add words to it. How can I deepfake you? How can I deepfake your CEO, your board, your finance director, whatever it happens to be? It's exactly the same principle. And this is why we've really got to start thinking about our defense in depth. Now, this is an absolute cracker. You've got to take your hats off. An employee for the UK engineering firm Arup joined what appeared to be a legitimate online meeting with several senior executives. All of them were AI-generated deepfakes. All of them. A Teams meeting where a genuine member of staff thought they were talking to the board or senior executives, and they were all faked. All because they were able to clone publicly available imaging, recordings, voice, whatever, and looked at making a best part of £20 million transfer. The criminals were prepared to put a fair amount of effort into it. I mean, this sounds like Hollywood, but this has been reported publicly. We've taken it from the World Economic Forum interview with their CIO. So if you really want to read the full SP on that, you can find that at World Economic Forum, Arup. The employee didn't really do anything wrong. Looked like a completely normal internal process to join a meeting. The whole of the other members were faked, and the criminals were able to create an environment that looked and felt right. No system was breached, no malicious software, no intrusion, pure social engineering, psychology, and some really good polished AI. So where do we go from this? Because let's burn the internet, shall we? Let's go back to paper files. What can we do? In-person meetings only. No, don't put that on us all. Come on, we all like working from home if we can. The point of failure isn't the technology, it's the assumed authenticity. If somebody looks like your CEO and sounds like your CEO, it's a bit like, looks like a duck, sounds like a duck. What is it? We've got to look at independent confirmation. We've got to look at those layers. Because when this was picked apart, that employee, no wonder they fell for it. It was really, really good. And we've got to be better. But it just means understanding what our processes are and making sure that they are fit for purpose against sophisticated like that. Because what has AI actually changed? As I said, not the attack vectors. They're not now coming in from here. They're still coming in from there. But it is that scale. Thousands of tailored phishing messages instantly. Okay, so there's more of them and they're a damn sight better. But what are you telling your staff about phishing? Because if you're telling them to do the right thing, that will still work. Don't trust anything. However good it looks, wherever you think it's come from, independent verification. What is your policy for that? Where's the governance? Where does that sit? Speed. Hostile reconnaissance on you, your network, your organization, whatever it is. Of course, AI sped that up now. You know, we've got loads of examples of hostile actors sitting on networks for months, weeks, months, looking for the right time to pull the trigger. You know, that is really sped up now. But what are you employing, or what are you asking your MSP to employ to make sure you can spot that? Because if the right tech is in place and it is allowed to be properly examined and investigated and alerts are looked at, this still isn't a problem or shouldn't be a problem. It's something that we can defeat. And yeah, believability, deep fakes, Jimmy Nesbitt, what we've just said about the Arab thing, cloned voices, writing style. Yeah, you've done an interview. Your CEO's done an interview. AI will scrape all that, get their writing style so that we can try and phish your staff. But if we've got those layers of defense, the right structure in place, we can still defeat all of this. And this is where criminals go. LinkedIn. You know, many people are on LinkedIn, organizational structures on LinkedIn. Happy days. Thanks very much. As a criminal, I now know what you look like. I now know how you write, how you sound, what your tone is at an organizational level and maybe at a senior leadership level when you do interviews, when you comment on stuff. The days of dear Mr. Mrs. Reverend Admiral type emails are long gone. This stuff is going to be flawless with grammar and spelling and syntax. I'm going to know who I'm writing to, down to everything, their full name, their position, and all of that. And a different language now doesn't worry me, does it? I'll just get ChatGPT to turn it into whatever. But here we go. None of this in the defences column is going to be new to you, or certainly new to your MSP. This is all stuff that we do, that you should be doing. And if you do it, you're going to defeat a lot of that, all of that. Email filtering, staff awareness. Okay, and that's something that I do. You know, out the back of this, if you want us to come in person or webinars for your senior leadership team, for your staff, they can have an hour and a half listening to the world according to Jez and to empower them to be better, certainly your staff. And for leadership to understand where this all sits and risk ownership and all of that. You're paying your staff to be there anyway. Let's empower them to be a line of defense. MFA, passwordless authentication, DMARC, DKIM, SP. Technical stuff, okay? Now getting a geek on. I'll run out of talent really quickly. Over to Matt. That's his job. But you get it. This is, dare I say, basic cybersecurity for business. And it works still against the AI threat. Here we go. Fake, and this is the sort of stuff that we see. I can't imagine any of it being news to you because it is mainstream news. Fake CEO authorizing urgent payments. And yes, we do have urgent payments in your world. I'm sure you do have urgent payments in your world. But of course, social engineering, one of the telltales is that degree of urgency. So what's the environment you've created? What's the ethos? What are your staff empowered to do? What are the checks and balances? Who can ring who internally? Who can go and see who internally to double check stuff? Synthetic supplier calls. Yeah, what's your supply chain like? What checks and balances have you got with your supply chain that don't rely just on personal relationships, that are properly systemic? So that if somebody is off sick or on holiday or is faked, the system isn't defeated. Fake WhatsApp voice notes. Again, we can't rely on, well, that sounds like Jez. Yeah, but it could be anybody, couldn't it? It could be fake. Video call drop-ins using deepfakes, and we've obviously spoken about the Arup incident. Hopefully you're getting the picture. And what's your defense? Robust verification culture. This is owned at that senior level so that you can create the right policy so that you understand those layers of defense, some of which would be technical, a lot of which would be staff-based. Help your staff know what good should look like. Credential attacks, faster credential stuffing. So credential stuffing, a load of, let's say, data breached credentials that are automatically thrown at various systems to see if we can get them through. Avoiding lockout triggers, that's part of it. Identifying reused passwords, that's a big thing that AI can do at speed. Automating reconnaissance on exposed accounts. All of this has always gone on. This is what criminals have always done with all of our data that is lost or stolen. Either, we've given it away through some naive activity, or we've been part of a data breach, or whatever it happens to be. Criminals have always done this, but now it's automated, which makes it quicker and more impactful. But it still comes into something, it's not new. Multi-factor authentication using passkeys or passwordless, access management, throttling those login attempts, making sure that there's lockouts. All of these good behaviors that you, with your internal structures and with technical guidance, should have in place anyway. It will work. Technical controls, MFA. Keep talking about it. I make no apologies for the repetition. It is so important. If you were to take nothing away from me at all today, other than MFA, do you know what? It'd save the day in many, many cases. And certainly when we do my staff input that I do, one of the things that we do to get buy-in is that we take staff home and we talk them through what this looks like, what good looks like at home, and then bring them back to work. And it's one of the things I say to them. If don't sit there with your eyes spinning or bouncing your head off the desk. If this is beyond you, you've got to have some responsibility. You're using tech. But if you take nothing away, invoke MFA, 2FA on all of your home systems, all of your home accounts, because that is probably the single most important thing you can do to reduce your risk from here to here. Look at going towards passwordless. I mean, again, I'm really sort of speaking to Matt now, because these are sort of technical controls. Or you need to be speaking to Matt and the team. These are more technical controls that, if they're not in, you need to be having those conversations. Passwordless, patching devices. And we know it's not the same as at home, where you've got a couple of phones, couple of tablets, whatever, and it's a 10-minute job to update everything. Your network, your structure, your device, all of that, it can be really, really complex. But what is your minimum standard? What is the agreement? We will have a patch update policy within 7 days, whatever it is. But make sure you understand it, and that you as a board, as a senior leader, are happy to carry that risk. Because the minute that update comes out, I mean, clearly there's vulnerabilities. They need to be patched. It's not going to happen like that. Are you happy to carry that risk? Endpoint detection, endpoint protection, antivirus, anti-malware in sort of old terms. DMARC, quarantine, rejecting stuff that comes in, account separations. I'd like to think this is pretty old hat, but the days of IT wandering around in their admin accounts all days just answering emails and then wondering why the company's just been brought to its knees because they've been cracked into and it's all gone horribly wrong. Let's look at that whole piece around access control, who needs what and when. No, your IT don't need to be wandering around in admin all day, do they? They probably need it actually for an hour a day at most. Least privilege principles. These are the real basics of information security management, aren't they? You know, do HR and IT sit down every week or two with a cup of tea and just confirm they know where everybody is and what everyone should have access to? You know, we made sure, oh, Jez has been sacked again. You know, I left on Friday with my box of shame. Have we made sure now, not gone into the IT inbox where everyone's they're trying to keep up with all the password reset requests because none of your staff can remember a password for more than 20 minutes. Has my remote access been removed now? I've walked out the door now. Okay. Oh, Jez has moved from finance to HR. Why has he still got access to finance stuff? All of these, yeah, this is all basic stuff. But to look good, to be good, we've got to start with the basics and build up. Up-to-date phishing awareness, that's really, really important. There is a lot of split opinions on phishing campaigns, but there is a lot of quality advice out there. Certainly the National Cyber Security Centre has some advice around phishing campaigns, but it's staff education, isn't it? We want to catch people out. It's the carrot, not the stick, because we're all human. We all make mistakes. So your staff are going to get upset if you keep getting whacked over the head because you fall for a phishing campaign that actually isn't that real life. Verification rules for payments. You know, it might be that you've got to set up a whole new structure, but what are those layers? Again, it can't rely on personal relationships. There's got to be systemic structure that will deal with the urgency, end of year, end of month, all of those things that criminals know about that are designed to catch us out. Good reporting channels. What are you telling your staff to do if their spidey senses goes up and they think they're faced with something wonky? What are we doing? You know, and even if they're overcautious, surely we'd rather that than them to be blasé. Who can they talk to? Can they get to IT straight away? Can they get to someone senior? Does it matter that the newest office junior in finance wants to ring the finance director to say, I've just received this from you. For some reason, I don't like it. What response are they going to get? Why shouldn't they be able to do that? Why shouldn't they get a pat on the head for doing that? And they need to understand it can't be a black hole. Right? It may not have the capability to do everything. But what are people understanding about, I've reported this. Was I right? Was I wrong? What can we learn from it? This is taken from the NCSC. I won't go in. I'm just conscious of the time. I won't go into it in depth. There is lots of versions which will cover the same information. But phishing attacks, defending your organisation, there is a layered approach. There's a good idea about, or there is a nice depiction about what good should look like. Key takeaway. Artificial intelligence has accelerated the how, not the what. And basic good cybersecurity defeats it. Still defeats most AI-enabled attacks. I have to, because this is one of my performance indicators. Action fraud has now changed to report fraud. It's not just a new sort of fancy cover. It is a whole new system. That is the one-stop shop for all cyber and fraud crime reporting. You can report to your local police force. That's fine, but this is a bit niche. You'll struggle to find somebody at the front door of policing to really get to grips with what you're talking about. If you go to RF, you will at least speak to somebody or use an online platform that will understand what you want, will ask the right questions, which allows us in law enforcement to triage what you're saying to us and then push it out to the most appropriate law enforcement response. We can't deal with everything. Fraud and cyber is 50%-ish of all recorded crime. And that's a reality. There's nothing more I can say about it, but we will do what we can. But just because we won't necessarily investigate it doesn't mean that we won't use your information. It helps us with intelligence, it helps us with the landscape, helps us with all sorts of things. And we can push stuff up to GCHQ. They can put a big firewall around the UK for a particular thing, particular threat. There's all sorts of stuff that is done. So no report is a waste of time, even if it doesn't end up in an investigation. And you as a business, you might think, I don't want the old Bill sniffing around my company. I don't want the publicity. I don't want this. I don't want that. We get that. We do understand business. We respect it. Doesn't mean we still won't investigate. Doesn't necessarily have to go public. Doesn't have to end up in a courtroom. But we still want to know what's gone on so we can help defend other people. And that's me. I'll be quiet now because we're running out of time. There's a link to our website. There's me. There's my email address. If people want to reach out and you want to talk about arranging some training for your organisation. But questions, please.
Thanks, Jez. That was awesome. I think that everybody will give great feedback on that. It's really insightful, really good to see from your side of the fence what that looks like and how that's impacting the industry. I think that you get a really unique view on what we see. As defenders, we don't see the things we prevented, whereas you're seeing a much bigger picture. So it's really, really good to have you on, and thanks for that. Especially the James Nesbitt video was fantastic. I think there's been one big question from Mike at Swarthmore. In particular, he's asking about, are there any online resources available for like people with low levels of technical ability, like specifically around charities or trusts? Is there anything online that they could use as a research tool or something to convey into their staff?
Yeah, I mean, I won't whack it in the chat. What I'll do is I'll put together a resource list for you, Matt, if that's okay, and if you can spin it out.
Yeah, of course.
The NCSC, they're the country's technical leads. So the public face GCHQ, country's technical leads, everything we do comes from them. They host a number of really good resources from small organisations, charity sector, and it starts talking about this is what good should look like for you. And so I won't reinvent the wheel. I'll just signpost you all towards NCSC. We host some stuff as well, which we've written it for the lowest common denominator, so anyone can understand it. And again, it's just solid practical advice.
Brilliant. Thank you. So we'll make sure we get that out, and there'll also be a video of this webinar sent out as well, which you're obviously welcome to share with your team. There's a landing page which I'll share as part of this. On that landing page, every single one of these webinars are recorded, published to YouTube, and there's like short links in that landing page, so you can go through, see any of these, and show them to any of your staff. So if there's anybody that you want to see this is all publicly available. We're not going to put it behind a wall at all. Next up, Jez, I've got a question just around Cyber Essentials. What does that do in terms of, if you do go through Cyber Essentials and you get accredited with that badge, what does that do in terms of removing risk?
Yeah, so Cyber Essentials, for those that may not know, it's a government-backed. It's delivered by IASME on behalf of the government, and the NCSC were involved as well. It's 2 levels: Cyber Essentials Plus. It is achievable for everybody, and the government, in an ideal world, would like everyone to have it, because it shows you've been through a journey. You've looked for Cyber Essentials. You're a little bit marking your own homework, but you've looked through a set of criteria and you've satisfied that, yep, I've achieved that. With CE Plus, somebody else comes in and marks your homework. But here's some recent stats that have come out to us. Now, statistics are statistics, and I would urge you to go away and read the paragraph or two below the headline. The headline says, organisations that have achieved Cyber Essentials are 92% less likely to make a cyber insurance claim than those that haven't. Now, that to me it's an open goal for business. It's a straightforward business decision. If I get Cyber Essentials, I am 90% less likely to make a claim on my cyber insurance. And you get 25,000 pounds of free cyber insurance when you obtain CE anyway. All right, for a small organisation, 25k might be enough. For a large organisation, when one of the big boys come in, PwC, they turn up mob-handed, it will get you about 2 hours work. But if you need more, actually you can increase with the provider via CE. And you're already 25 grand in, if you get my point. So anyway, it reduces risk. The headlines are 92% less likely than organisations without it. If you haven't got it, and I know I don't run a business, why haven't you got it? You've got an MSP that will support you through it. it's a no-brainer. It's an open goal. Honestly, easy for me to say I know, but there we are.
Awesome. Thank you. And looking forwards, so not looking at the attacks that are happening right now, but looking forwards into the future, 6 months, a year, what sort of scares you the most? Like, what do you think is coming over the horizon that maybe we haven't seen?
Do you know, I've been doing this a few years now, Matt, and the basic messaging still hasn't changed. Attack vectors haven't really changed because they haven't had to. In general terms, we haven't matured as a collective. I mean, lots of organizations are in a great place. Of course they are. But that means there's still many, many others that aren't. And it is still social media. Phishing remains the single most successful attack vector. Between 70 and 80% of all successful cyber attacks will start with some form of phishing. Why? Your staff, that's your staff, probably. Help them improve stuff. So where I'm trying to answer that question is nothing has changed really in the last 8 years around attack vectors, how crime happens, modus operandi, and the mitigations that we as law enforcement and of course, the responsible professionals in the industries out there are putting forward to business. So in the next 6 months to a year, I don't particularly see that changing much at all.
Yeah. So it's just the quality and quantity of the attacks that yeah.
And that's all it is. And going back to that message of, it's going to be shinier. There's going to be more of it. But do you know what? If we do good well, we'll stop it.
Yeah. I'd just like to mirror something you said there as well. A lot of people get overly caught up on what 2FA looks like. And you mentioned earlier to verify, and I think that some people don't realize that 2FA isn't just getting a text on your phone. Yeah. Sometimes it's that second point of verification. It's just calling a colleague or WhatsApping a colleague on a separate platform and getting a second piece of information to validate your decision. So absolutely. Yeah, I think that's really good advice. So thank you. Okay, is there any particular sectors? So I think charity came up in the chat earlier on. Is there any particular sectors or industries that you're particularly worried about, or you think maybe have a disproportionate amount of attacks?
Disproportionate, certainly those that are generally less resilient in this space. So it is charity, education, micro, small organisations, local government. No surprises there. The organisations that don't have the structure that a larger and more mature organisation does, or feel certainly with charities, the amount of work I do with charities, they're intent on every pound going outward facing to support their clients, their service users, and they forget that if they don't get the back office right, they might not exist next week and they can't help anybody. And I know that sounds a bit crass, but that's the conversations I'm having with charities all the time. You've got to take your foot off the gas occasionally to get better at what you do and to make sure that your longevity is a little bit more certain. So it's those industries. We also must remember that much of cyber criminality is random. They're actually chasing vulnerabilities rather than particular organizations. Of course, we have particular organizations targeted. Look at last year, we all know the big names. But on the whole, the criminals are chasing the vulnerability because that's where their skill set sits. They know how to exploit that vulnerability and pivot. So the automated code goes out looking for a vulnerability in an operating system. Oh, we found it. We've got 100 results. Let's start going through it. Still automated. Don't know, don't care. Which is why hospitals are here and charities are here and schools are here and all of that kind of stuff. What we do as well, there's fluctuations in ransomware organised crime groups. Who's more active this month than last month? And if you're that interested, you can go online and just put in ransom group favorites type thing, and you'll see that Killen particularly likes a certain sector. Maybe it's manufacturing. Dragon Force, for instance, might be hospitality. So depending on who's most active at the moment is a leaning into those kind of sectors.
Amazing. Thank you so much for coming on today. The parting message I just want to give everybody is just to reinforce what Jez has been saying throughout this. It all starts with a conversation, especially the social engineering stuff. The more we're having conversations around this sort of stuff and actually just going through the thought process of considering it, that's going to instantly reduce your risk. Just getting people to engage in that chat, because they're going to think about it a little bit more differently. And the next time that urgent call comes through, they're much more likely to just pop the pause button on and verify. So that's the last piece of takeaway I'd just like to reinforce from what Jez has been saying on this call. Thank you so much for coming on, Jez. It's been really helpful, and thank you for all your support and offering it to the base. I'm sure that lots of people will want to follow up. If anybody wants to contact Jez, obviously his details are on screen. They can contact us as well. We'll provide any support or training that we can offer. Obviously, it's all free of charge. It's all just about trying to educate and prevent. It's much cheaper to prevent fraud than react to it.
Yes.
and much easier for us as well. So ultimately this is a great source of investment, and a little bit of time and return on attention is always a good thing. Thank you everybody for coming on today and giving us a bit of your time, and thank you Jez for spending this time with us.
No, brilliant. No, my pleasure. Thanks folks, that's been really good. Thank you
very much.